Hi everyone, welcome back. My name is Trina, the Southeast Asia Teaching Fellow from Google News Lab, and I will be your host for today. I hope all of you had a good and well-rested break after Chapter 1 concluded. To our new friends, hello, and we're very excited for you to join us today. So now marks the start of Chapter 2, Meet the Legends, where every week we will invite one expert to come on and share their work and how they put those skills that you have learned in Chapter 1 into real-world situations. These fact checkers are the real internet heroes because they had to do the hard work of sifting through all this content on the internet, on social media, at a very fast speed to prevent soon-to-be viral or just starting to go viral misinfo content from spreading further on the internet. To give you an idea of how the sessions work, our speakers will present their work and will also throw you questions during their presentation. So please pay attention because this will test if you're listening to our speaker carefully. So the first 3 fastest and correct answers to answer on chat will earn points, then we'll update on the leaderboard, while all those who answered on chat for all 4 sessions, the questions that are being thrown out will qualify to get swag. So we just need you guys to respond and answer the questions for every single session so that we can track your attendance. I know many of you will wonder if the swag items is the same as Chapter 1. So the answer is no. We will keep the suspense and you will find out what it is when you get the swag back in your mailbox. And please be very, very patient because we do have a lot to sort out. And this is not a scam. We do give out a swag bag. So to kickstart our very first session for Meet the Legends, we have Meeko from VERA Files, an ICN certified fact-checking organization that focuses just on debunking mis and disinformation. So Meeko is just fresh off covering the recently concluded Philippines elections where VERA Files has done a lot of great work to counter the mass amount of misinformation that went on during election season. If you have any questions for Meeko at all, please put them in the Q&A box at the bottom of this page throughout the session, as we will open the floor to the audience for questions where Meeko can answer them live. Without further ado, let me hand over to Meeko right now. Meeko, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you very much, Trina, for that introduction, and to Google News Initiative for having me here today. Hi, everyone. Good evening, all the way from Metro Manila. I'm very excited to be here to give you a glimpse of the work that we do as fact checkers at VERA Files. So again, my name is Meeko, and I lead one of VERA Files' fact-checking initiatives, which I will tell you a little bit more about throughout this presentation. So let me dive right in. Just to give you a brief overview of who we are, basically VERA Files is a 14-year-old nonprofit online media organization based in the Philippines in Metro Manila, and we are known for producing in-depth and investigative reports as well as fact-checking. So we rarely do breaking news. We don't compete with mainstream media in that sense. Instead, we really focus on tackling issues of public interest in a deeper lens. So since we were established in 2008, VERA Files has really focused on covering underreported issues such as human trafficking, issues faced by persons with disabilities, climate and environmental issues, political developments, among many others. But in 2016, VERA Files began its fact-checking initiative. So it was actually during the same presidential elections that got President Rodrigo Duterte elected into power. And if any of you are familiar with that particular period, it was actually the one that was labeled by some as patient zero of the modern disinformation era. And this is purely because during that entire election season, there have been rampant use of paid influencers, fake accounts, and disinformation operations to prop up certain campaigns, and that includes the candidate, President Duterte at the time. So our fact-checking initiative actually began as a project of a journalism class at the University of the Philippines, Diliman, where one of our founders, Professor Yvonne Chua, had her students verify claims made by candidates during the national debates. So the roots of our fact-checking work is actually very much tied to youth initiatives such as projects like these. So following the guidelines of fact checkers in other parts of the world, the outputs produced by Professor Chua's students were then edited by VeraFiles staff and published on the VeraFiles website. And after the elections, the organization decided to continue this work in-house, which is now called VeraFiles Fact Check. In September 2017, we became the first organization in the Philippines to become a signatory of the IFCN, or the International Fact Checking Network, at Poynter Institute. And this just basically means we are committed to a set of principles as fact checkers, which include commitment to nonpartisanship and fairness, transparency of our sources and methodology, as well as our funding, and of course, having an open and honest corrections policy. So under VeraFiles Fact Check, we have two main fact-checking initiatives. So the first one is on fact-checking public figures. This is the project that I lead. So here is where we track falsehoods, flip-flops, misleading claims that are spread by government officials, as well as other prominent personalities. So this can include celebrities or influencers and vloggers that have significant following on whatever platform they're on. And the objective here is really to hold these people to account, basically for what they say, because we want them to be careful because they have that influence toward the way that public policy is being shaped, or in terms of shaping public opinion in general. So I won't go into each and every one of these examples in the interest of time, but just to give you an idea of some of the claims that we check under this project. On the right side of your screen is actually a fact check that we did, a recent fact check that we did on the false claim of Senator Amy Marcos. She is the sister of the presumptive president in the Philippines right now, Bongbong Marcos Jr. So Senator Marcos claimed that their father, the late Philippine dictator Ferdinand Marcos Sr., we will meet again later on, received a Silver Star Medal from the United States for service during World War II. So again, this is not true. This has been disproven by historical records and also other credible resources that we've checked throughout our research. So these are just some examples of what kind of claims we deal with on a daily basis under this project. Then we have our second fact check project, which focuses on debunking online mis and disinformation. And we do this as a third party fact checking partner of Meta. This partnership began in April 2018. And since then, we have, on a daily basis, sifted through viral content that's circulating in different online platforms, including social media platforms, to look at posts that are that need to be verified or need to be fact checked, in short. And in the next few slides, I'll be breaking down a few examples of posts that we have debunked in the past under this project. All right, so the first example that we'll discuss, or that I'll share with you today, is this video that circulated on Facebook around March. So a few weeks before we had our national elections just last week on May 9. So basically, this March 2022 video on Facebook shows a campaign rally of Vice President Leni Robredo, who was running for the presidency at the time, in Kidapawan City in southern Philippines. So the video shows basically Robredo standing on stage while the attendees of the rally were supposedly chanting BBM, which is the nickname associated to her rival, Bongbong Marcos. So let's listen very clearly on very quickly on this video. All right. So obviously, you can see here Robredo holding up a placard while the crowd around her chants BBM. So there were many Facebook users and netizens who believed that this video was real, and they even commented on the post to thank Lenny Robredo for supposedly endorsing her rival in the presidential race. So if that wasn't ridiculous enough for you guys, this video, this post is actually fake. But how exactly did we come to this conclusion? So when we encounter posts on Facebook or online that we want to fact check, especially if it's carrying a video or a photo, the first thing that we do is to evaluate what we're up against. And in this case, of course, the first thing that we did was to watch the entire Facebook clip. And one thing that we noticed was the TikTok icon, as well as an accompanying username that kept flashing in and out of the video. So it isn't so clear here in the photo, but the username here is actually at Barilayasan Third. So using this clue, we went on TikTok to search for this username and look for an account that matched, and we were able to track one down. So when we went into this account and scanned through videos that it posted, we were looking for a potential match, a visual match for the Facebook video that we saw. And we were able to find one that was uploaded around March 15, which is very close to the date when the Facebook video circulated. So as you can see, the angle of the thumbnail of the photo here is very similar to the angle of the video that we saw before. And when we clicked that video and compared the two, we found that it was a visual match for the one that we were fact checking. The only difference here is that the pink overlaid text in the TikTok version of the video was cut out in the one that was circulated on Facebook. However, this is not the most crucial element here that we found. The deceptive aspect of the Facebook video actually lied in a different element. And this is in the audio clip itself. So I'll play for you the original TikTok video, and I'll let you compare for yourself the difference in the sound. Okay, so it's taking a little while to load, but basically, okay, hopefully it plays now. Okay, so apparently not yet. I'll just continue in the interest of time. So basically, in the video, you will not hear anyone shouting BBM. It was just the crowd cheering Robredo on without mentioning any names, without mentioning any candidate. So we didn't actually stop here when we found this TikTok video because, okay, here we have the video already. Okay, so again, obviously there wasn't any BBM chanting going on in that video. However, we did not stop there as our main and only evidence in producing this fact check, because if we only rely on this video alone, some people might say that or might argue that the TikTok user could have just as easily modified the audio for this video before uploading it on the platform. However, so what we did here is to corroborate this information with other legitimate sources that would be available to us. And that would be basically coverage by legitimate news media on Robredo's campaign rally in Kidapawan City. So that's exactly what we did. We looked at videos or live streams of the same event, and we found one that was uploaded by Rappler. It was a live stream that basically confirms that the crowd did not chant BBM, contrary to what was being shown in the Facebook video. So with that live stream and with that original TikTok video, we were able to conclude that this particular Facebook post was fake. Okay. Okay, so at this point, we will have a quick check-in activity just to see if you guys are still with me. I will be posting two questions here based on some details that we've discussed in the past few slides, and just type in your answers in the chat. So the first one is, where was the city where Robredo's rally was held? So uh, basically, I mentioned this quite a few times. So just type in your answers in the chat. It's a city in the southern part of the Philippines. All right. So the second question here. Okay, I'll proceed to the next one. Um, what element of the altered video did we consider deceptive? What was the aspect of the Facebook video that made it, a piece of disinformation? All right. So I hope you guys are able to type in your answers already. So if there are no further issues on this one, I'll proceed to the next example. All right. So another interesting post that we debunked the past few weeks or few months actually is also related to the elections. And I purposely chose two examples that were election related because for the past few months, really, this has been the topic of choice of disinformation peddlers in the Philippines. So here you will see another Facebook post that carried a moving photo. So you'll see what I mean by that in a second, featuring the late Philippine dictator Ferdinand Marcos Sr. So in this moving photo, Marcos Sr. was supposedly calling out the moral values of people who will choose to vote for a tax evaders, quote unquote. So the post carried this clip. So on the right side, you'll see the translation of what he was saying.
What is unity if your people have no moral values? Halimbawa, yung kapitbahay mo ay tax evader, tumakbong presidente, binoto mo. Anong klaseng tao ka?
All right. So just to give you context, and just so it's clear, Marcos Sr. didn't actually mention any name or of a candidate in this supposed video clip of him. But for context, Unity is actually the platform of his son and namesake Bongbong Marcos. And Bongbong Marcos was also previously convicted of violating the Philippines' tax code back when he was a local official a few decades ago. So upon watching this video right then and there, you will notice or get that feeling that something is very fishy about this post. I mean, for one thing, if you would look a little closely, only his head and mouth were moving. His body does not move an inch. Even his fingers or his chest were not moving to signify that he was actually breathing. So, spoiler alert, this post is actually also fake. And it's an example of what we call a cheap fake, which is basically a low quality version of a deep fake. Okay, so how did we come to this conclusion? So the first thing that we did here was to basically treat it as we would a fake image or an inaccurate photo that's been circulating online, because we kind of assumed already that the photo was basically just animated or edited to make it appear as a video. So what we did here was conduct reverse image search. Since the file is technically a video, what we did was to take a screenshot of the video and then proceeded with the photo, with the image search itself, using various social search engines, including Google reverse image search. So I will focus on that last one, so we will be able to save more time. So a feature that is very helpful when we conduct reverse image search on Google is a section on pages that include matching images. So basically, these are web pages that carry the exact same image as the one that you're fact checking. Here we found an article by the Washington Post, which is, of course, a legitimate and credible source for us, that carried the exact same image. All right, so it also carried a description of when and where the photo was taken, as well as the photographer who took the shot. So these are information that are very important for us when we conduct reverse image searching, because the purpose of doing a reverse image search is to get to the original context of the photo. So basically, through this article and through this quick or short description, we now know that the photo was taken during a public address of Ferdinand Marcos in Honolulu, Hawaii in 1986, and it was taken by Jack Smith for the Associated Press. So Actually, this is already very useful information. But one thing that we have to remember when we're fact checking is that we have to put a premium on first-hand sources. So what we did here is that we did not stop at the Washington Post. We want to visit the Associated Press in order to confirm whatever information we have gotten thus far, and also to see if there are other information that might be useful for us to establish the context of what was happening in this photo. So that's precisely what we did. I went to AP Images, which is the photo archive of the Associated Press online, and there we got more details relevant to the image. We were able to confirm the event uh, of that was happening when the photo was taken. We also got a specific date. It was taken on February 28, 1986. So this was just a few days after the Marcos family was exiled out of the Philippines following the People Power Revolution. Um, and we were also able to confirm that it was indeed taken by the photographer that we saw earlier. So this is all well and good. We were able to track down the original source of the image that was being used to deceive people online. However, it does not confirm or debunk the claim that Ferdinand Marcos made such a statement. The photo alone does not give us the complete evidence that we need to disprove the statement's veracity. So what we did next was try to find out what is it exactly that he said during that event. So using the information that we got from this AP description, we were able to track down a transcript of his exact speech. And from there, we confirmed that Ferdinand Marcos Sr. did not make any statement of that kind. He did not mention tax evaders or calling out people for their moral values based on who they decide to vote for. So with all of this information combined, we were able to conclude that this post is also fake. All right, so again, we'll proceed to another check-in here. The question that I have for you is just basically what was the year when the Associated Press took that photo that we were fact-checking? All right, I think I mentioned this a couple of times. I hope you were able to catch that. And then I'll proceed to the next slide. So basically, now that you have an idea of the kind of posts that we do here, let's discuss the process that each fact check goes through within the VERA Files newsroom. Okay, so at VERA Files, the fact-checking process for us really begins at the monitoring stage when we look for claims online that merit verification. So we do this in a variety of ways using a combination of manual techniques such as monitoring your own news feeds in whatever social media platform you're on, or also using tools to track down what claims are going viral in specific platforms. All members of our team are involved in the monitoring process. We also fact check claims that are sent to us by our readers through our misinformation tip line. And with all of those, that volume of mis and disinformation coming, floating around, we have to use a criteria in order to determine which posts are, number one, eligible for fact checking, and also which ones we need to prioritize. And to do that, we follow this 3-point criteria. Basically, we ask three main questions here. The first one is that the statement has to be a statement of fact. We don't fact check opinion, we don't fact check predictions or speculation. We stick to statements that can be proven or disproven. Another question that we ask here is it relevant? We have to, for us, we focus on claims that have to do with public interest or shaping public policy. And another aspect here is that, especially when checking online claims, we try to stay away from disinformation that are not viral or have not garnered, at least hundreds or thousands of engagements from users online. This is our gauge in order to avoid, unnecessarily amplifying disinformation or adding oxygen to claims that would die on their own. And then the last question that we have here is it feasible? In order for us to decide that we will fact check such a claim, we have to know that there are sources available out there, independent and objective sources, whether they be documents or experts that we can interview in order to debunk or corroborate a claim. So each time that we encounter a post or a statement, we run it through this criteria before proceeding to an actual fact check. We also follow a two-layer system of editing at VERA Files. So this means every fact check that we do has to be cleared by at least 2 to 3 editors before it gets published. And this is basically to ensure that we minimize errors as much as possible. Since we're fact checkers, we want to get things right and try to avoid becoming avenues of misinformation ourselves. But when mistakes do happen, of course, we have a process for corrections, and we do correct promptly and prominently as much as we can. So once we've published our fact check on the website, we then promote it on various social media channels as well as on our Viber community. Now, before I end my very short talk, I commend all of you here for your interest in fact checking and verification work. And I'd also like to point you to some resources that we produce at VERA Files that you might find useful. This is our learning corner that you see on your screen. You can access it through this link. And here you'll find do-it-yourself guidebooks, video tutorials, quizzes that you can do on your own to practice whatever skills that you have. I also invite you to join our community on Viber if you're there. We share with our community members the latest stories and fact check articles that we do. You can also follow us through any of these social media channels or go straight to our website for more fact checks and in-depth stories about the Philippines, just in case you're interested. And at this point, I'll end my presentation, and I think we can open the floor to questions. And I see a few of them already here. So back to you, Trina.
Hi, thank you so much, Meeko, for your presentation. That was very, very insightful. So I'm sure it was very intense covering all this content that was circulating on the internet during the election campaign. I see that we already have questions trickling in. So, Meeko, would you like to take the first question?
Yes, sure. So the question here is about the biggest challenges that we face at the VERA Files team during the recent Philippine elections. Actually, I would say one of the biggest challenge here is the volume by which disinformation has, been involved in this entire election season. This is actually probably the first election that we've covered where we've seen this information coming in even months before candidates have filed certificates of candidacies. So even before any politician has declared their intention to run for any position. So we were already tracking election-related disinformation at that point. And this trend has continued on even the months, especially as we went closer to the elections and even on election day itself. Probably it's the same thing for us with the volume of disinformation that we have, and we're also still a very small team relatively. It doesn't really, it doesn't compare like the number of claims that are circulating out there. It's not possible for just one newsroom to do. But I think one positive thing that we've gotten out of this particular election season is that we've seen more and more media organizations and civil society organizations, chiming in, doing their own fact checking as well, and even more collaborative projects. So I think that's one of the ways in which we try to address that challenge in dealing with that big volume of disinformation about the elections.
Right, thanks. I think there's also a second question, basically, how do you deal with threats and trolls, right? I'm sure that's very common in the Philippines as well.
Yeah, actually, it is very common. For us, we have a policy at VERA Files to not engage trolls as much as possible. I mean, we do get our fair share of trolling. If you go through our website or Facebook, you would see people commenting, accusing us of being corrupt journalists or being biased journalists. And when we see those comments, and we kind of like get a sense that these are probably paid trolls or people who don't even read the stories, we try not to pay attention to them as much as possible. But we try to differentiate if there are people out there in the comment box, genuinely trying to ask us like, are we credible, or where do we get our sources? In those cases, we try to reach out to them privately. But if it's if it's obviously just a troll, an anonymous troll who's trying to harass us or any one of us individually, we try not to pay attention to them. But at the same time, the past few years, actually, we have try to strengthen our security, in the digital security as well as physical security, because these threats are actually they can turn into a real world harm very quickly. So we do try to up our game in terms of security for the past years, definitely.
Yes, and another question is about non-partisanship, and I think this is something that every single fact-checking organization will get, right? This kind of question. So I was just wondering, how does VERA Files actually, explain to the readers and audience, and even during your outreach that VERA Files, it's
Mhm.
a non-partisan organization.
Yeah. So one thing that we always highlight whenever we get a chance to, speak with members of the public or to schools or civil society organizations, because we do a lot of trainings as well, is that we show them that this information is not exclusive to just one side of the political spectrum. We give them a range of examples that show, this information favoring one candidate or favoring one political side and the other. We explain to them that we are committed to a set of principles at the IFC, and we do tell them that they can actually file a complaint with the IFC, and if they believe that we're not staying true to that principle of non-partisanship and fairness. And we do as much as possible you know put out our methodology and our sources out there so that our readers themselves can fact check us if there's any doubt to the articles that we've been doing. And also for us as journalists, when we seek out sources, we try to not just rely on one. We try to corroborate information just to make sure that we're not being biased to any one source or any one side. And all of these things, our methodology, all of that is available on our website, and we do continue to share that with readers directly every time that we get a chance to speak with them through workshops or trainings or talks like this one.
So another question that I thought is quite relevant, especially to young people today, is that with so many different news sources, you just wonder who is trustworthy, who is reputable, right? So like
Mhm.
as a fact checker, like what do I mean, not just reputable. I think like how do you discern and tell the difference between which news outlet or which fact checking organization is actually trustworthy, and it like we can read the content with ease without any fear or doubt that it could be fake.
Yeah. I think it would also very much depend on your own specific knowledge on the local environment of what media organizations are available to you in your own country or in your own area. But there are a few red flags that you can spot in terms of, for example, determining if a Facebook account or a social media account is, real, or it has an agenda, or if a website is just mimicking a legitimate news outlet or an organization. But however, one advice I would like to leave with everyone is, even if you think that this source is trustworthy, even if it's the Washington Post or CNN or whatever news outlet out there that's famous or prominent, always have that level of skepticism, because anyone can make mistakes, anyone can become a source of misinformation. But one way that you can avoid falling victim to disinformation and misinformation is corroborating your sources. Like if you get one piece of information from news source A, don't just stop there. Try to triangulate that information. Look for an independent source that would say the exact same thing. And make sure that you are trying to access, credible sources. These are websites that have a track record of independence and fairness in their reports. You can also check if they are adhering to certain ethical principles. For example, if you are engaging with a fact check website or a website that claims to be a fact checking organization, check if they are transparent about their methodology. You can check if they are a signatory of the IFC, and so on and so forth. And it's the same thing with news websites. Check if they are following any ethical standards with regard to their media practice. That way, it's a source. It's something that we can check and something that we can hold on to hold whatever organization or whatever source you're using accountable to what they say or the information that they put out there. So I hope that's helpful. I don't think we have time to go into the very specific red flags for each of those websites, but I hope that was helpful for you guys.
Yes, I think that was very good. And I think that most of them who already participated since chapter one have already learned the basic skills of reverse image search, of checking,
Mm-hmm.
like things on social media like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So they've got the basic skills already. It's just about like what Meeko said, putting two and two together by and implementing and applying what you've learned, corroborate information. I think we may have enough time for just one last question. So Meeko, do you have any other questions that from the list that you would want to like take on?
Yeah, actually, I'm just now scanning through the questions. But I think the question number 6 is about like fact checkers getting pressurized by political parties for favoring them or exposing them. Uh, as political parties are very powerful. So actually, yes, this is a for us this is quite a very timely question. Um, for the past years under the current administration in the Philippines, it has been no question that fact checkers have been on the receiving end of a lot of pressure coming from the government, coming from powerful officials. For instance, when back in 2019, we were accused to be participating in an ouster plot against President Duterte. Of course, that claim was false and baseless, but it also gives you an idea of how they try to, delegitimize organizations that hold power into account by claiming that they are anti-state or just trying to criticize the government for the sake of criticizing them. And actually, now with the onset of another administration, the presumptive president Bongbong Marcos has actually also made a statement about uh, removing or doing away with fact checkers that have a quote unquote agenda. So what he means by the agenda, we don't know. But the thing is, legitimate fact checkers, the only agenda that we have is to uncover the truth and to hold people accountable, basically to remain truthful to what they say. We are not pro or anti any candidate. We just want there to be accuracy and truthfulness in the way that we make decisions, in the way that we converse with each other, in the way that politicians make policies and implement policies. So yeah, we do get a lot of pressure from powerful officials, and the way that we try to go around them is just making sure that our work is bulletproof. We try as much as possible to, be transparent with our sources and make sure that we are not falling short of the standards that we set for ourselves in terms of the quality of the work that we do. And yeah, I think right now that's the priority that we have, because the veracity of your work is always your best defense when it comes to these kinds of allegations. Yeah, but hopefully I hope that the same situation is not the same for other cultures and other countries represented here.
Yeah, I think this is an incredibly trying time for fact checkers, especially fact checkers in the Philippines. So really, thank you so much, Meeko, for your hard work and the hard work that VERA Files is doing as well as all the other fact checking organizations in the Philippines. So thank you to all of you today as well for listening in. I hope you found the lessons shared new, useful, enlightening. We will see you again, same time, same day, next week with our next speaker, a fact checker from AFP. So thank you so much, everyone, and take care and have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you.